Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I'm your co-host, JP Chapas from the Two Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me is now the doctor, Dr. Lavie, Dr. Lavie Margolin. Doctor, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing well, John. That's why I'm wearing my very warm graduation cap, which I'll subtly take off, but just wanted to do the genius gimmick while I could. But, John, I have a question for you. In around 1989, 90, 91, did you get Sports Channel America, and were you able to watch ICW or IWCCW?
No, actually, I wasn't able to. I don't know. In a weird area in Central Jersey, sometimes you get good stuff and sometimes you do not.
Okay, so that was one piece of childhood lost, but a lot of good access for you, I know, at the time too. But that's why today's topic and guest, who I'll introduce in a moment, is so meaningful to me. I feel like the first independent wrestling that I found, depending on how you define like later days AWA, was IWCCW on Sports Channel America. And I might be filling in like some memory gaps, but I feel like I remember Kevin Von Erich coming on and talking about, how the two companies were apart now, and seeing Vic Steamboat against Tony Atlas, and Tony Atlas against Vic Steamboat, and Vic Steamboat against Tony Atlas. And it was great. So the Savoldis were really, you know, uh, really smart at predicting the industry and where it was going. Firstly, in terms of wide distribution through so many of the years, but then later acquiring tape libraries, however you define it, and now having what's the second largest media wrestling library, and having so many wins with it, that we've wanted to talk about it for a long time. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce our guest today, the executive director of Savmar Media, better known as Savoldi Wrestling Library, Daniel Archambeault-May. Daniel, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Daniel, as far as you, before we get into obviously the media side of it, but I'm just curious, where did you grow up? Because that's like, to me, a key point of wrestling fandom. It's like where you grew up. Sometimes it's like us, Northeast, we're like WWF guys, and then we get into everything else as we kind of grow up and realize there's other stuff out there. So where did you grow up, and what were you a fan of?
I live in central Massachusetts. As a kid, WWF Wrestling Challenge is what we got. But we did get Joe Pedicino's wrestling block. And that really blew my mind. And ICW, IWCCW on WNDS, that was, pretty amazing for me as well, just discovering that there was other wrestling out there. And, of course, WCW on TBS, and, all the basic Northeast wrestling that you'd expect someone to see.
So were you always like a big fan, or was there something that like drew you in? Like was it family members, or was it something else that drew you into the business?
Oh, no, I mean, I was always a fan. I remember my older brother, I remember watching a WrestleMania with him, and I was, had my mind blown. And it was just, I think that was WrestleMania 3. But yeah, ever since then, I've just been a huge fan.
Who was like some of your favorites? Do you have some favorites back then?
Actually, Jumpin' Joe Savoldi was my favorite wrestler as a kid. I thought he was the greatest. And I live in a very small, I don't mind doxing myself. I live in Charlton, Massachusetts, which you may know us by our Mass Pike rest stop and nothing else. So yeah, not a lot of wrestling in this town, but right. ICW would come through. So it was like Ultimate Warrior isn't coming to my town, but Jumpin' Joe is. That's a champion, like it just appealed to me as a kid. Yeah, so that was one of my favorites. Did you go to a lot of shows?
Did you go to a lot of shows?
Oh yeah, I mean within reason, as much as my parents would take me. I didn't go every week or anything, but the Worcester Auditorium would WWF would come to town, later the Centrum and stuff like that. So I mean, I caught what I could.
That's all like always funny to me. It's Worcester, right? Not Worcester. I don't know. I'm from New Jersey, so I always screw it. It's Worcester, right?
Worcester, yes, sir.
I don't know why I always screw that up. I can never get it correct. It's
no, I mean anyone outside of Mass pronounces it wrong is just to be expected.
Yeah, I know my dad, because he used to go up there for work and stuff sometimes, so I would be like pronouncing it wrong. It's like, no, it's this way. I'm like, oh, I just could never. I don't know why. Could never click. I was like, I guess because I'm not from there. I just can't get it. And you say it so quick too. It's like you're nailing it. So quick.
Wister is it's
Okay,
Wister.
so Worcester. Yeah, Worcester. Okay, yeah. Nice. So you like the Savoldi's. When did you basically begin working with them? Because obviously you were a fan of jumping.
Oh yeah. So probably about 5-6 years ago now, I'd actually approached Mario. As I wanted to do a documentary on ICW, IWCCW, and it's something I'd still love to do if I had anything resembling free time. So yeah, I'd reached out to him, and he had just started streaming stuff with Mike Shields from AWA and Jerry Jarrett's territory. Brilliant producer. So they just started that, and as it came up, I don't remember the exact details, but their graphics design guy bailed, and Mario was like, "Hey, can you do this?" And I was trying to get in favor because I was going to bug the hell out of him to do the documentary. Like, I need tape, I need you. So yeah, just trying to get in favor with him. I was doing that, and then I started working under Mike, just trying to pick his brain because again, he invented the vignette. He was a big deal in wrestling production. So that appealed to my production nerd status, yeah. And then Mike passed away really suddenly, but we still had contracts and things we needed to take care of. So it was like, all right, I guess it's my show now. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
So what are your favorite libraries and stuff that you guys have on there as far as the family library, if you will?
Oh yeah, I mean the ICW stuff, of course. My favorite, the most entertaining thing we have, like minute by minute, Bob Loose's Monsters of the Mat is ridiculous. Public access nonsense with guys wearing spirit Halloween costumes, just watching old wrestling matches. I mean, it's so entertaining. That would be up there. We get a lot of good stuff, and plus I'm a kind of a kitschy guy. Herb Abrams UWF, that's a fun one. Anything weird I tend to gravitate to, but we also got some classic stuff too that more purists might enjoy.
I love looking at it because just the value of what you're naming there, but ICW, IWCCW, Global Wrestling Federation, AWF, yep. IWA Puerto Rico, World Class, USWA, some NWA. So basically a lot of classic territories there. I mean, that's some pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, so my goal was to get everything left that Vince didn't grab under one roof.
Right.
So I've been bugging everyone that had a claim to a classic library. I've had a couple holdouts. Ron Fuller, if you want to call me, please. But yeah, other than that, I mean, like I said, I've been trying to get anything cool. We got Dennis Coraluzzo's tapes. We just got the Central States from Harley Race's son Justin. Anything I can get, I'm happy to get.
Man, that's great. Does the Vince stuff, not Vince himself, but WWF stuff, WWE, does that bother you that they just try to take everything from their own? Maybe a little bit of selfishness on their part that they're trying to take every library ever, pretty much?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we have a pretty good relationship with them, and there's a lot of overlap, or not, I shouldn't say a lot, but a fair amount of overlap between our two libraries. And we're really good about not stepping on each other's toes. We have all world class after November 88, but a fair amount from before then. But they do a way better job with it than I ever could. They got $1 billion equipment to make it look HD, and I'm downstairs with a 40-year-old Umatic. So I'm not going to compete with that. I don't need to. They're doing better than I can. But yeah, for the most part, when they get stuff, they put it out there, which I'm happy to see. I can go watch Mid-South if I want to, rather than it just, disappearing. So I can't complain.
I'll get back into it too, but how do you view it? How do you see it? How do you get Ultimate Classic Wrestling? If I wanted to watch it right now, how do I get it?
Yeah, for sure. ClassicWrestling.net on any web browser. We're also on Roku, Amazon Fire TV. So if you have a Fire Stick, Apple TV, iOS, Android, Google TV. Yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, ClassicWrestling.net if you can't remember anything else.
So I'm going to hand it over to Lavie because I know Lavie's got a ton more questions for you and some interesting questions too, Lavie. I'm seeing here.
I'll do my best.
Oh yes, I've been waiting for this. So excited. So to me, like, obviously when the service first came out, people were talking about it, everyone noticed, but I feel like in the last 2 years, 18 months, like it's become even more on everyone's radar, maybe as like the WWE shifted, how its catalog is distributed and so on. But like, was there an inflection point that you can note where it's sort of like, oh, things really took off, and like, is there something you can attribute it to?
The Von Erichs set we did with Joe Dombrowski, that did really well for us. I think that pointed a lot of eyes to us. I'm trying. I mean, we also, we've done some, I don't want to say acquisitions because we didn't buy anything per se. Made some distribution deals with some newer stuff, and I think a fan of Central States may not have found us otherwise, but now that we have Central States, people are looking. And then we got some affiliate deals with some podcasters like Bo James with his Outlaws to Independence and the Great Dave Dynasty. They plug the heck out of us. So I do what I can to get in front of anyone.
Yeah, no, I was actually thinking about it as you were talking about like buying libraries and so on, and Outlaws to Independence with, of course, the co-host John Boucher, and
yes,
he talks about finding old. It wasn't called tapes, right? You know better than me, right. What it was called. But and then converting them and so on, which I'd assume are like far out of copyright. So would you go to like someone like John and be like, what do you got? Maybe we could use it on the service.
I have bugged John before. I think I may have left him on red at one point, and I do apologize if I did, because I wanted those Luz Thez tapes he had, and stuff like that. Assuming it is in the public domain, which it very well probably is. That John's tapes become John's unique copies, so John could copyright them. So I'm not going to hop on his YouTube and just steal them because they're public domain or whatever the case may be. But yeah, no, he's found a lot of great stuff. I'd be lying if I hadn't downloaded much of what he had for my personal collection.
Yeah. So and Joe Dombrowski is a former guest of the show, so I always get to hear his name again. So from what I gather, all deals are different, meaning that I know Joe sells his DVDs and so on, and I'm assuming, and you tell me, like, whether he retains the rights to this, whereas others, I'm assuming, okay, we have this collection. Do you sort of like give an overall price for what you see as the value, or is it sort of like by the hour? I know WWE used to like have a multiple by the hour price.
Yeah, no, if I had money like that, I would definitely prefer to do that. We do a straight up split because I'm terrible at math. So if your show makes $50 a quarter, you get 25, I get 25. And I handle all the editing when someone can't, which is usually the case when you're dealing with 60, 70-year-old men. So yeah, I try to be fair with everyone.
Yeah, so talking about like rights ownership, and I don't often curse on the show, so just a warning for everyone. But I probably would guess that you were a fan of the 605 podcast.
Oh yeah.
So Brian Last had something once where he like really cracked me up. He like yelled into like the mic, "No one fucking owns Memphis." So with something like Memphis and wrestling, how do you like sort of sort that out?
Well, here's the thing. Again, no one owns Memphis, but if you have a unique copy of something, so like Dave Parsons, he had some of Jerry's Masters. Dave's copy of whatever Memphis episode we're referring to is a copyrighted product of Dave Parsons. If I taped it off TV in 1984, I can use that copy myself however I want. But you can copyright a public domain item. Contrary to popular belief. So yeah, if I just went and started stealing all of Dave's Memphis, I could potentially get in trouble. Not that I would do that. So with Memphis, I get some from Dave Parsons. There's another distributor, MVD. Anyone who's uploaded on YouTube probably felt their ire. They have a lot of stuff. I think that's where the bulk of our Memphis is from. Mike Shields had about 6 hours of it. So yeah, Memphis is a bit of a rights nightmare, but there's enough around you can kind of pick it up and find something to do.
In a topical news that John and I will talk about in the news portion later, but of course, tragic passing of Sabu. Does your library include some Sabu matches?
Yeah, definitely. Not actually. Yeah, the Dennis Coralluzzo tapes, there was quite a bit of Sabu on there. And he was also on Gordon Scozzari's AWF show, wrestling Chris Candido, which is a very underrated match.
Would you say that the service is sort of like a freemium model where, the free streaming app, you sort of like hook people and then they purchase more stuff that's like behind the paywall?
Yeah, definitely. So there is a monthly fee, but if you don't want to subscribe, I try and keep about like 30% of the stuff free with ads, that is. And then some of it, is if you're subscribed, you can watch it. But once you subscribe, you get everything. There's no like tiers beyond that. There's no premium Patreon type tier things going on.
I think one of the most interesting areas of growth has been the fast rollout. As you talked about, it's like pretty widely distributed. How's that been going for you?
Which one's that?
The fast channel.
Oh, we actually don't have that anymore. That was we had tried that for about a year. The company was great. I got no complaints on that regard, but it wasn't doing what we expected it to do. And I was kind of just competing with myself, giving everything away on Tubi versus pay $6 for it over here. So, yeah, it didn't do what we wanted, unfortunately, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
No, that's interesting. I'd love to like dive into that a little bit more because one of our earliest, two of our earliest guests were the two co-founders, or the people that ran the Pro Wrestling Pluto channel.
Okay.
And then it was actually like an official Pluto channel, but like I guess it just didn't make as much sense with like the ad rates, but
Yeah.
the TNA, and we'll see what ends up happening with AAA's channel and so on. But do you think it's just because of the lower ad rates for pro wrestling in media that sort of hurts it, like as we've known historically with like TV advertising?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, anything streaming is just nickels. Most of our money is, subscription revenue. Ad revenue is, I'll get like 1/8 of a cent on some shows, and it's not much you can do about it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's why I'm assuming like on YouTube, like you have a presence and a following, of course, but like it doesn't seem like you're leaning into it heavily, like just because of like what you would make on it compared to like other platforms.
Yeah, exactly. We more use our YouTube for advertising. Like, here's a clip from a thing. The whole thing's over here. Just because, it's if 1,000 people watch a YouTube video, it ain't worth the time, It's
sure. And we're like, yeah, we hope 5,000 people watch us.
Right.
But like talking about different ways of distributing content, have you ever looked into like diginets? As like ATSC 3.0 rolls out, and each over-the-air station can kind of split maybe even like into 18 channels, but they have only done like 9 or 10, so there's certain quality. But I've always thought like people watch pro wrestling, there's content to feed it, you could sort of like go niche. Like, has that ever crossed your radar?
Not especially. We did have talks with some company in England who had like a billiards channel. I don't remember what they call it over there. What's the weird name for it?
Snooker.
Thank you.
Oh,
yeah,
John always says
yeah. So they had like a snooker channel, and they were like, "We want to do a wrestling channel too," and that just kind of fell through. I think like with wrestling, it's big, but it's not as big as people expect. Like, it's not reality TV or NFL or anything. There's fans, but to get like someone with big money interested in wrestling, it's very rarely going to happen. They have to be a fan and do it out of love. If no one's going into it making $1 million, does it, unless you're a McMahon.
Yeah, and I never have looked into it. Does Tony Khan have brothers or sisters, right?
Yeah.
So I love the acquisition of the Coralluzzo tapes. It's just like,
I was so proud of that. When I first started like doing this, like the 3 things I wanted to get: Herb Abrams' UWF, Paul Alperstein's AWF, and Dennis Coralluzzo's tapes. And the Coralluzzo ones were the last ones, and that was like a Temple of Doom-esque raid to find the actual physical tapes, which was fun. But yeah, that one I was so proud of, because it was like the last one. It's like I looked over my kingdom and wept because I had nothing more to conquer. It was
So speaking of which, like obviously, I think like John and I are like in the ideal target market because like we care about stuff from the 70s, especially if it has relevance, like the PAFO circuit and so on through the late 90s, and then like the Attitude Era hits, and you're kind of like, this kind of sucks. But like now that we're like 20-25 years out from the early 2000s, I think like there is like to older fans like certain resonance there, like especially when like CM Punk and Samoa Joe and all these people were like doing all these small shows. Do you think that's something that would appeal to your audience that you'd like to explore? Like the late 90s is as late as it gets.
I mean, we get some stuff into the 2010s. Mario was running IWA Puerto Rico with Victor Quinones into, I think it was like 2008. Don't quote me, but somewhere around there. So like our stuff stops right about there. But we do have some new stuff. Like, we work with Joe Dombrowski quite a bit, and I'm doing, as far as like programming and things like that, I handle all that. So I go by what I know and what I like. Maybe that's not the greatest business idea, but so I was like digging through Joe's stuff, and it's like, oh, Samoa Joe, I know that name. AJ Styles, I know who he is. Yeah, so I mean, are you going to see a Kenny Omega on there ever? Probably not, or at least not for 30 years. But I go with what I know.
Yeah, with the WWE relationship, I believe the company was thanked recently or credited in some of the footage. Have they begun reaching out like with the Vault to be like, oh, we know you have this stuff, we think that would play well?
Oh yeah, no, they've made a couple offers over the years, very fair ones too. I don't want to sell them short, but it's the family business. It's Mario and I love doing this. But yeah, they're whenever they need something. Ben Brown up there, they're me, or I'm Mario's him. I guess I should. They're archive dork. He knows what we have, so if they need something, they'll always email, and they won't take it for free as much as we try. But they're good people. I got no complaints about Connecticut.
So in terms of talking about working with affiliates, charting the territories, and some things like that, maybe John and I want to talk about it with you off air. But we'd love to hear, like, for other podcasters and people in the business, like, how would that generally work, and how can people who would form such a relationship with you reach out?
Yeah, so the company we work under, Play Now Media, they're the ones that own the infrastructure for our channel. Also great folks, obviously. And I'd have to go through them. They're the ones that do all the techie stuff. But basically, you'd get a code, BOTB at checkout, and you get X dollars off or X percent, and then a percentage of whatever they purchase with it, whether it be a month or a year or whatever, gets kicked back to you. So I mean, again, I'm terrible at math, so I try and keep something simple. It's probably going to end in a zero, whatever that percentage is.
So last question from me before I turn over to John. What's your comfort match in the archive where you just want to relax? Like, what's your go-to?
Oh, guilty pleasure. Anything with Skylo Low is a blast.
Nice. John?
Love that. Now, as far as ClassicWrestling.net, where could everybody go see it, and what could they expect to go and see when they go to the Ultimate Classic Wrestling?
So again, ClassicWrestling.net on any web browser, or on Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, iOS or Android, or Google TV, anything with a Play Store we try to be on. Just type in Ultimate Classic Wrestling there. It might take a bit to find us, but yeah, like I said, we keep new stuff. I try and keep 3 to 5 shows added weekly, maybe more if I have it, but I'm contractually obligated to update it every week, so I do so.
Nice. Got to mention, of course, Ultimate Classic Wrestling, a specialty streaming service offering classic professional wrestling from the world-famous Savoldi family, a wrestling library. Viewers have access to a massive assortment of classic wrestling television, live events, and specials ranging from the 50s through today. The expansive streaming library is curated by the Savoldi family and Savmar Media, brings you the biggest bouts and lost gems from ICW, IWCCW, Global Wrestling Federation, the AWF, IWA Puerto Rico, World Class, USWA, all eras of the NWA, classic territories, lost indies, and more. The Savoldi Family Library is the largest independently owned wrestling library in the world. So where can everybody find and follow you if they want to follow you?
So again, networks, classicwrestling.net. We're on Facebook /Savoldi Wrestling. I'm on Twitter occasionally at Savoldi Network. And also YouTube is, I also believe, Savoldi Wrestling.
All right.
Facebook's probably the thing that gets updated the most because I can do it from my phone with ease.
Nice. Daniel, thank you so much for all the time today. Really appreciate it. Everybody should go out there and check out this library.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Daniel.
Been a pleasure.
All right, Lavie, great stuff there from the library. Now let's get into maybe some sad news here. R.I.P. Sabu, the wrestling legend, passed away at the age of 60.
Yeah, I feel like the media has covered and speculated on, his untimely passing, and his last match and so on. But the thing that I wanted to focus on the business side was the transformative nature of Sabu, especially as it relates to mainstream wrestling. And to me, mainstream wrestling at the time was the aftermags that were all over any magazine shop, gas station, newsstand, whatever it may be. And I remember like being floored seeing Sabu having his own cover of Inside Wrestling, and at other points around the same time, like being one of the stories featured on the cover. But it just meant to me like, wow, this guy has, I'm not sure the time period with WCW crossover, but basically with publishing timelines and so on. This guy has never been on mainstream wrestling, and, it's crossing over. And especially the ads at the time, which, are video purchase, but like seeing, Sabu in the Hannibal Lecter mask, it really stood out, and he really changed the business.
Man, what an innovative guy. I mean, to say the absolute least. Feel like maybe he didn't get the credit he deserved. He probably should have been paid a lot more money. Paul Heyman, let's be honest, kind of screwed him over quite a bit. So R.I.P. Sabu, just an absolute legend. I wasn't always a huge ECW guy. I felt like some of those guys just shouldn't have been on TV. Some of those guys stunk, and some of the guys that get praised, I'm just like shocked about it because I didn't think they were any good, and like the smartest fans in the world didn't catch on to like that these guys weren't that good. So some of it was terrible, but then I'm like, but man, you guys have a gem here in this guy Sabu. Not only can he be a high flyer, do a lot of death-defying stuff, basically innovated the tables that everybody in that company, including the Dudley Boys, stole from him. I mean, just absolutely crazy when you think about it. But man, like he was a good wrestler too. Like he'd actually work a bit. Like he was awesome. Like every aspect. And it's like, wow, can we have a good match with Scorpio? Yes, and Scorpio's awesome, but like, yes, amazing. Get a good match with Taz. Guy can have a good match with RVD. This guy can have a good match with Hayabusa and Jinsei Shisaki. This guy can have a good match with Koji Kanemoto. Then he can wrestle Abyss and Samoa Joe and have good matches with these guys. So totally underrated legend. Unfortunately, underrated. Shouldn't have been. Should have been one of those guys. Should be like WWE Hall of Famer and a millionaire sitting on his couch right now. Whatever. So crazy. Kind of sad, really, what happened in his career because one of the best.
Yeah, and my favorite like Sabu finds are like not only the early days of ECW, but when he crosses over to different unique things like against RVD and USWA, or any little piece of Michigan footage that's around. And I don't know too much about it, but when it was like NWA Sabu, where he was had his own territory in Michigan, at least for like 8 to 10 matches. Certainly the WWE tryouts, those few weeks on Nitro, that's the fun stuff for me.
Absolutely. Love that Nitro. It's so funny. It's like such a short run, but damn it, it's so good because those two JL matches are great. The Alex Wright match is awesome, albeit kind of short. It's like, damn it, we could have had something there, and it just didn't end up working out. But damn, what an absolute legend. Now, going from one legend to another, since you are a legend now that you're a doctor, where the market meets a need. What is this? You wrote about the television distribution prospects.
Yeah, now that I'm done with the doctoral degree, I have to find something to do outside
Yes.
of 9 to 5. So I started writing again. So onlinecubjobsearch.com, long story why it has a name, but there's a long form article where the market meets a need, pro wrestling's prospects for television distribution 25-26. So I'm just going to give a broad overview. Basically, no matter where someone was as a company, on the US side, in terms of the television distribution, for some of the bigger organizations, I left out MLW in terms of semi-national, and GCW. Brett has talked about some of the complications with having television, so I just focused on 6. And like, what could they do to put themselves in a better position, like realistically, right? Like, people are always talking about, AEW should be on Fox, and I know they talk to them, but like, it doesn't seem as realistic. I addressed that in the article, but like, what else could these companies do? So just to give an overall picture, so WWE, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I think acquiring Lucha Libre AAA kind of like gives them an additional foot in the door with top 10 most watched networks overall, but 2 of which are Spanish language first, Univision and Telemundo. So imagine either WWE or WWE in collaboration with AAA having prime time television on this network, which draws 1 million people on average. So that's a whole nother segment of the audience that you can open up. I know that they've worked with these organizations at different times, but that was like second language rights to Raw or SmackDown or whatever, or like weekend programming, but that doesn't have as much impact. So that's what do you give the company that has it all? WWE, I would say prime time. AEW, I don't see it with Fox. To me, Ion. And for some reason, First John, I had in my mind PAX, because they talking about ECW, They used to have the syndicated shows, but Ion has become a much stronger over-the-air network, and they've been playing smart money ball, not unlike CW, but in a different way. They've been going towards the women's sports, WNBA, where they got super lucky with Caitlin Clark, but that relationship has continued. And NWSL, which is women's soccer or football, which, to a lower degree. But I was just thinking, like, AEW needs over the air. Ion, doesn't want to spend a lot of money, although AEW is getting good rights fees, from what we understand, with Discovery Warner, but maybe like a women's division or women's centric show with Ion, but toned down. It still has like that feel of like it's like Christian, family friendly roots. So I would say like no blood, no cursing, anything like that. But that might be a possibility for them. I think like Ion might be like, well, with our Criminal Minds reruns, we're already paying for it and we're doing X amount. So I think it might be something where they'd have to prove themselves first, kind of like a TNA on Spike TV back in the day. Maybe weekend programming or late night programming, and if it has some momentum, they can build into it. So TNA, although we're hearing about them negotiating with 5 potential distributors, and if we see something, we see something. But I feel like with Access TV doing 23,000 viewers on average, not TNA necessarily, but on average for a network, I don't know if there's networks that have more viewership that would court them. But Anthem does have the relationship with Invicta airing on CBS Sports Network. So CBS, right? Like, it sounds exciting, but it's kind of like a little bit off the radar. They don't even use Nielsen ratings. So if there'd be a rights fee changing hands, obviously that makes sense, but it wouldn't position them better, like in terms of people finding them. There's also the syndication route, like WoW uses, but I think that's like a case where the name holds them down. Like, imagine them like teaming up with WoW and be like WoW and TNA wrestling. It just doesn't sound good, not to be crude. But I do like their small strategy, which is continuing to distribute through regional sports networks, through digital networks, and so on, to sort of like fill in gaps there. But obviously, if one of these 5 networks and one or two is of some high profile, that's a pretty big game changer. So we'll see. With WoW, I think they're maximizing what they can do. Basically, syndication's going really well. They're rerunning on Vice, and they have a fast channel. So their growth in the US would be if Paramount wants to distribute WoW on stations that other stations they own, but are those of a higher profile. So here in New York, John, right, there's CBS 2, which is obviously CBS, and there's WLNY TV 55, which originated out of Long Island, and that's sort of like where Shotgun Saturday Night and all those type of shows have been on. So they're on 55 now. If they were on Channel 2, even in, late night, you have challenges of the news and all that. So it would have to be like overnight. But when you're on the higher profile station, then you have to deliver more ratings. New Japan, like Vice TV, just seems to make so much sense. New Japan is already producing the content. You would just have to translate it, or maybe even take secondary rights, because only a certain amount are seeing it on New Japan World in English or on Fight. So that's that for them. To me, John, the most interesting thing, and we talked about this station when it first came out, Dr. Phil's Merit Street, which averages the same ratings as Access TV. So it's not that far off the radar. They had PBR for a while, but apparently they weren't paying the rights or on time or whatever. There was a dispute, so it stopped airing PBR. And I'd like to know more about these numbers, but they reported as like 3.5 million or 3 million viewers over like 5 shows, 5 boxing matches, or like it's like a boxing series type of thing. But like, why wouldn't you report it as like 600, 700,000 as a standalone? So I question that a little bit. Sometimes like you add up like total viewers and what does that really mean? But despite all of this, like, I think like there's obviously an openness to sports programming. They're a startup network. They're in need of programming and name value beyond Dr. Phil. So that seems like the perfect match for pro wrestling. And why NWA, right? So obviously it's a conservative station. NWA, not necessarily as a promotion, like pushes conservative values, but a lot of their stars have. So that's why I kind of see it as like a match.
What is going on in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling right now? Are they doing good, or they're not doing too good?
So looking at, the US side, so a little bit of reflection, because they have had their 3rd show now in the US in 2025. So San Jose, 1,814 in January. Windy City Riot in Chicago, the retirement match, 4,674. And Ontario, California, 2018. But you can just look at the picture from WrestleTix and other sources where it's like, I think it's a 10,000 seat venue. And it's not like a prime venue. So, it's not like paying half the price of renting out Madison Square Garden or whatever. And as we always talk about, the West Coast obviously is much closer to Asia. So it's not like coming to New York. But it continues to like baffle me, like how it makes sense as the numbers go down. But they tend to do at least or just under 2,000 people, which is compared to other promotions, is obviously very solid. A hard thing to do today.
When you looking at the wrestling landscape and what's going on, it feels like TNA wrestling is like they're getting popular, getting there. But how are they doing at the box office? How's everything going with TNA right now?
Yeah, so I think in late May, just about a week away actually as we record this, Brampton, the Under Siege and Impact taping, like their reserve seats, which is several hundred, are sold out. There's some box seats, I'm not sure, in the upper tier that I'm not sure if those were ever for sale, but those are not for sale anymore, at least. So I assume those sold out. And then there's like in the upper tier general admission, but I feel like those are going to do really well. It's kind of like a home game, as we've talked about many times. That's where Len Asper's newly acquired basketball team plays. Now, a rare triple shot for TNA. So they're moving, I think it's about 2 hours over. Please correct me, Canadians, or those that know, but I feel like that's what I found on Google Maps. From Brampton, Ontario to Niagara Falls, the Canadian side of things. This is listed on the TNA Wrestling website, something that we talked about extensively as the lead story last time, the Border Brawl featuring the stars of TNA, but more promoting like Brutus Beefcake. So I think this is sort of like a rights fee or sold show. Good for TNA, extra revenue. I think they just have to be careful with their like own brand, because if people are coming to see TNA, I don't think that's the type of show that it will be. So that's that. Arizona at the Mullet Arena. So June 6th, according to WrestleTix, 909. And the second day, 711. Now it's set up for smaller. I think we've talked about it before, 5,000 seat arena. So that's not great. Kind of like what you'd be expecting in the past from TNA at tapings and so on. But still a few weeks out. So we'll keep that open. Now, Moon Township, Pennsylvania, so the Pittsburgh market. That one's obviously further away even, but about the same. First day, 8:29. Second day, interestingly, is 9:23. TNA Slammiversary. So I think they did negative sales, meaning that WrestleTix had to like correct their numbers. So things are kind of like in the same place they were basically last time. 2,765 before the numbers were corrected. It was about 76 tickets moved in 7 days. So it's about that time to start focusing on putting a draw out there. I know everyone, not everyone, but people feel like, okay, WWE will send some big talents to support the show, but have they? When have they done that? Like they've sent NXT. So obviously, if John Cena wants to have that match with Joe Henry, that option will be there unless there's some sort of crossover on that day, July 20th, but unlikely. Bound for Glory, like we talked about, talking about Massachusetts earlier in the show, Lowell, is rumored for October. Now, something I don't have a lot of information on, at the moment, but a platform we used to talk about a lot more, especially with TNA, was Twitch. So Twitch has a fair amount, I'm not sure how many, but multiple like official streams now where people can watch along TNA. I just think that's a good idea. And finally, with TNA, our friend of the show, recent guest, Romy Glazer, had a interesting reveal, I guess you could say, on X, talking about TNA and TNA business. With all the conversation lately about rising ticket prices in pro wrestling, one next move we had lined up when we rolled out the new TNA Plus plans, season tickets baked into your subscriptions. Here's how it would have worked. Pay $160 annually for TNA Plus. Get 2 GA tickets to every TNA event that year. Go if you can. If not, leave them. It will call for a friend. Build community, fill seats, convert first-timers through fan referrals. Create new VIP networks in every city. Business case, $160 fixed income per sub in 6 separate GA purchases to match at the time. Upside of merch, concessions, meet and greets. Fan referrals equal more subs, more viewers. Loud, full arena every show equals better shot at the media rights growth. We were asking, how do you sell out GA? How do we fill buildings with raucous, loyal fans? How do we keep the flywheel spinning? This was one answer. Biggest risk? Too many free GA seats going to superfans and their friends who had annual subs. And suddenly, you need bigger venues. Oops. It was a bet for sure, but the math worked.
Oh yeah, definitely got to keep up with her and what she's got going on because she always posts very interesting stuff and like, man, business wise, so smart. She really knows what she's talking about there. But speaking of business, we got to talk about your favorite GC Dub. What's going on with GCW?
So first, a run through of shows on the books and maybe even add a couple more. Sometimes they put in their graphics, like a talent puts in their graphics, like what shows they'll be on. And GCW hasn't even announced it yet. So I'm just like taking notes and whatever. But first, with cage match. So just to run through and then we'll go show by show. But May 17th, Chop Maryland. So that will likely have taken place if you're listening to the podcast version here. Rochester on the 18th. AC on June 6th. June 7th and 8th. Little Rock on June 20th. Kansas City, June 22nd. Hartford, July 5th. Dallas on July 11th, of course, the all-in related. Coney Island on July 19th. Tokyo Triple Shot from July 28th to 30th. Indianapolis on September 13th. Bloodsport on September 28th. And Anchorage, Alaska on October 4th. But looks likely that they're back in the mall. Elena Black, recently of WWE, right, will appear not only in Little Rock, Hartford, Dallas, and Coney Island, but 8-1, which hadn't been announced, Rutherford, New Jersey. So a little bit back and forth with friends about East Rutherford and Rutherford. But I did confirm that Rutherford is sort of officially where the mall is situated, depending on where you look, I guess. So that'll be cool. A question, not to speculate too deeply because we don't even know yet, but if it is in the mall, a question will be, was it the venue that was the draw, or can you do so a second time? But it'll also be harder to judge because people will be coming into town for SummerSlam weekend. The only other thing that's not WWE related that I know of at the moment is WrestleCon in Newark. But we'll see if there's more. Usually it's not as crazy for SummerSlam, but here obviously is a double stadium show. So probably about the same amount of people that come for a WrestleMania.
So, so are you going to be going to the mall for that show?
Open to it because me because I worked at went so I'm wondering if we can go full, but like we can sneak off part of it, but no plans at the moment. How about you, John?
I was thinking about it actually, but if I end up going to SummerSlam or maybe one or both days, then I probably can't. Then it'd be too much going on.
Yeah, and not to sound like entitled or whatever, but I was only at one WrestleMania. And what was it? The Rock and Cena's second final match forever, right?
Yeah, right.
So that was amazing. But like in terms of like, I was like, okay, I went to WrestleMania, but maybe my seats weren't so great. They weren't the worst seats, but I just didn't enjoy it that much. Something about like the huge venue or whatever. So that's just me. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what other shows are run. But in terms of like what the attendances look like, so Joppa, Maryland,
we lost Lavie for a second there. A little bit of a issue with the connection. So we're just going to wait 1 second while we look for Lavie. He was talking about all the GCW comings and goings, just as far as where they're going to be and where they're at. And obviously, we were talking about coming up, Job Maryland, which is kind of MCW territory. That's where they were at coming up as well. So just waiting, just 1 second here. Lavie should be right back. We hope. We hope and we pray. I see that he's trying to make his way back into the building here. Let's just see here. Nope, we're still waiting on Lavie. Okay. So the GCW shows. Oh, he's back.
Hey, John.
Lavie's back. Yes, there you are.
So I'm because I was reading my notes, I wasn't looking at the picture. So I thought we were connected through the Cage of Survival. When did I drop out?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So my question for you is, do you have any interest in those shows? Have you gone to like the GCW shows in AC before?
No, never. But I am interested, not so much in the tournament, the Cage of Survival. I would be more interested in, to be honest, rather than the tournament.
Cool. So and you can get tickets more like I feel like the Cage of Survival is closer to like the CZW thing. Not that I followed it. You know,
yeah, the Cage of Death, which I've went to twice. Yeah, yep,
okay,
back
cool.
in the day. Yep.
So maybe someone else has to enter the cage like Brett did to get all the momentum to the GCW side. Not suggesting that to anyone. But Little Rock tickets are finally on sale. I guess, in my opinion, I guess we were waiting for that a while. But interesting thing to note, the third row is almost gone at $44 about. But the first and second row, $70 and $55 to round off, are still available. So we'll see if that holds up. Kansas City at the Truman, I don't know the venue, I just like the name, has tickets in all areas available. The Webster on July 5th has sold out the first row. July 11th in Dallas has sold out the first row and the first row of the stage.
What is going on with NEW and my good, longtime, close personal friend, Raphael Morphy?
Yeah, Raphael Morphy is, and I mean this in a very good way, like, is the Forrest Gump of pro wrestling.
Yeah,
when something, when something notable happens, Raphael has been there, and in my opinion, I've talked about this for a long time. Westchester County Center has been the best C venue for WWE forever. Now that they're not running it or haven't done it in a long time, I was a little bit doubtful, but NEW Wrestling had a big success. So Raphael wrote, "Fun day at the historic County Center. Happy to take the call from a long time bud Giovanni Roselli." And that was really what the local promotion was built upon his last match. In has 737 tickets, a big pickup in terms of the last time. 112 tickets out the door. After recording this was taking place tomorrow. So interesting to see, depending on Wrestle, or is it before, just before, and just afterwards? Maybe if they get, obviously if they get to 1,000, it's very impressive. I think even 900 is showing a lot of sustainability for a show in the same venue.
What about NWA? What is going on over there in the world of the NWA?
So, firstly, the most notable thing is Billy Corgan saying the NWA isn't going anywhere. And then people joked last time he did that oh, I know, but it's commendable. He loves the NWA. He's wealthy. He can build out these territories within reason, get the talents that he wants based on the budgets that he sets, and so on. But I think what would be a fascinating book, and I'm not sure I'd be best positioned to write it, is that final year of the NWA connected to WCW and then into the independent scene through now. So many different like owners and whatever. Like, John, like, question for you, like, so post WCW period, has Corgan been the best steward for the promotion, like giving it attention, money, keeping it alive, or do you think it could be in better hands?
I don't know. That's hard to say with NWA, just because because what talent was really available to everybody. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's really tough to say if somebody else is in charge, where they have different talent, would they go this direction, that direction. There's so many different promotions going on right now. So in WWE and AEW, scooped up and gobbled up so many guys. So it really, really is tough to say. But interesting. I don't know if you saw the Wrestling Central announcement from Billy Corgan and Paramount.
No, I grabbed. I didn't even realize what graphic I was grabbing. I see it says Wrestling Central, but I did not hear it. What happened?
Yeah, it's funny. I just forwarded this to you, by the way, but I will read this. This is very interesting. On the air, I just got this email from Paramount, one of the contacts over the PR contacts, Paramount Global. So the Paramount Global Content Distribution, Paramount Network, is distributing a new all wrestling fast channel, Wrestling Central, featuring WOW, Women of Wrestling, and National Wrestling Alliance, the NWA, which will be on the Roku channel. They are thrilled to announce this new channel coming soon to the U.S. and Canada. The new channel will feature weekly matches from WOW and the NWA, along with the extensive library, including content, classic episodes, new never-before-seen matches, specials, and documentaries, as well as old classic footage, like I mentioned. So pretty cool. That gets announced right as we're literally recording on the air there.
Yeah, and that's very us. So, like, I have to absorb this. I'm like, the mind blown.
Yeah.
But a couple thoughts that come to mind first. Is this a rebranding of the WOW channel that already exists? So WOW had its own channel. So is that not working out as well as they thought? Because there's obviously a limited amount of WOW content and appeal for that specific type of wrestling. Adding the NWA, do they now have access to Billy Corgan's archives? Like the Houston Library, talking about content. So that's interesting. And Paramount Global getting into business with the NWA. Could we see the NWA being distributed through syndication through Paramount and teamed up, like we were talking about how it would be maybe a struggle for TNA, teamed up with WOW in blocks? So that would be like another game changer. So interesting stuff. I think I want to think about this, and depending on what news breaks next week, to have it as one of the leads that we really dig into.
What is going on Crockett Cup-wise?
Not much. Besides Natalia, or Natalie, excuse me, leading the charge, in terms of attention for the promotion. But basically, it's hard to tell, how many rows of tickets have been put on sale, but not looking like a sellout for tomorrow as we record this, but it's a smaller venue, so you never know with the way you distribute tickets and a walk-up. It very much could be, but, it didn't fly off the shelves.
What about MLW?
So MLW, just looking at it briefly, not too much different from last time. New York, tickets here and there. In Queens, likely that will sell out. Fightland in Dallas. Some tickets moved. Most of the venue doesn't look like that has been put on sale. Slaughterhouse, where's that show? October in LA, back to LA. So looks like some good movement on those tickets already. And Lucha Apocalypto back to the Chicago market. So that's newly announced. So front row tickets still remaining, but obviously a recent win in Chicago.
Maple Leaf Pro, what's the latest?
So recent success, of course, at the Matinee, the old Maple Leaf Gardens, which has been scaled down. Looked like a strong attendance there, and always fun to follow PCO when he's being promoted in Quebec. So July 5th in a venue that's generally 3,500 seats.
Streaming, what's going on streaming wise?
So just something to note, Pro Wrestling Noah had tweeted out about Wrestle Universe that they had a 25th anniversary show, saying it was the second most viewed show in platform history, most viewed single promotion event ever. Wrestle Universe membership at an all-time high. So as we talked about before, this ownership is like a sleeping giant in the industry. So if Triller, which they haven't reported their earnings and seems like they're low on cash from what's been reported, if they were to falter, I think Wrestle Universe should really think about making a big play in this space. Obviously, Zone.ify, something to note with their interest in running this one-time show, and I don't think Flow Slam would have worked out, no matter how well run it was developed, just because, the market changed so much. But it was kind of a disaster. Flow Sports, which is totally unrelated to pro wrestling now, which has amateur sports like wrestling, they're continuing to raise money. They're profitable and a very solid platform that John Wall Street, our friend, covered very well on his platform.
Nice. Love that. All right, Lavie, let's wrap it up. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2manpowertrip. How about you?
Follow me on Twitter, LavieMarg, LavieMarg. Check out the long-form article on linecupjobsearch.com related to television distribution. Join us on LinkedIn, The Business of the Business Group.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We're up here next week. Business of the Business. See you next week, folks.